This story is really interesting to me. Seth Rogen basically told comedians who bitch about cancel culture to shut the fuck up and accept that they're not funny, basically, or that their jokes aren't up to date. So let me read you some of this from The Hill. The title is Seth Rogen on Cancel Culture. If you've made a joke that's aged terribly, accept it. So they say, Seth Rogen dismissed the risks posed to comedians by cancel culture in today's society during an interview with Good Morning Britain this week, saying he thinks comics should own up to making remarks that don't age well. In an interview with The Breakfast Program to promote his new collection of essays, Yearbook, Rogen was asked about moments from his own past films that have received new looks or even criticism in recent years. Quote, there are certain jokes that for sure have not aged well, but I think that's the nature of comedy. I think conceptually those movies are sound, and I think there's a reason they've lasted as far as people still watching and enjoying them today. Jokes are not things that necessarily are built to last. To me, when I see comedians complaining about this kind of thing, I don't understand what they're complaining about. If you made a joke that's aged terribly, accept it. And if you don't think it's aged terribly, then say that, he said. So I'll give you a little bit more here. Quote, saying terrible things is bad. If you said something terrible, then that's something you should confront. I don't think that's cancel culture. So, here's the reason why I want to discuss this. I think he's half right and half wrong. So, yeah, it is true that there's now this reaction from people who are just not funny, where they'll say something that's profoundly unfunny, and then when there isn't a positive reaction, they blame cancel culture. And it's like, nah, son, you're just not fucking funny. And so it is true. It's like, it's the bailout for everything, right? It's easy to always say like, I guess I'm being canceled, whether it's because you said something that you thought was funny but wasn't funny, or Republicans do this all the time, conservatives do this all the time. They say something that's like factually untrue, and then somebody corrects them, and then they're like, oh, I guess you're triggered, snowflake. I guess you're trying to cancel me. So that definitely is a thing that happens. And it does get annoying sometimes because it does seem to be a common reaction from comedians where it's like, oh, it's always cancel culture's fault. It's always cancel culture's fault. And I don't buy that. I think there are a lot of unfunny people who think they're funny. So that's the part where he's correct. The part where he's wrong is, I think it's really naive and silly to deny that sometimes the criticism is ridiculous. You know, like you could say something that's not funny, sure. But oftentimes there is like a hyperbolic overreaction where people want to not kick those people off social media or ban them from various things in society, and, you know, don't let them do the show at the place because they said the thing and that's unacceptable. And also there's instances, like, there are instances of people saying shit that's kind of funny, people have the initial laugh, but then they're like, no, that's terrible. I don't like that. You can't say that. So I think it's also naive and silly to pretend, like Seth Rogen is almost pretending that it's always reasonable when there are critiques of comedians. And I think his head is in the sand if he thinks that, because there are plenty of examples of critiques of comedians that are just like, you're going too far. You're going way too far. So let me just give a quick example here. Everybody knows and loves Michael Brooks, rest in peace. He's an amazing guy. And I was, I was happy enough and thankful enough to know him. And, we did a few shows together, and I had been on his show a bunch of times. And anybody who knows Michael knows that, like, he's fucking hilarious. He really is. And there were times off air when he would do accents. Now, without a doubt, and I'm not saying accents like the ones he did on his show that everybody knows he did on his show. I'm saying, like, all sorts of accents that some people would hear and be like, stop. Like, don't do that. That's not allowed. You're making fun of other cultures or other people, and that's not okay. And he would do it, and everybody would laugh, but we all knew, and he knew, that some of these things he couldn't say in public, in front of everybody. And some of these accents he couldn't do in front of everybody. Because a lot of people would be offended and they would cancel him and they would be against it. And I think to pretend like that's not a dynamic is absurd. Like, of course that's a dynamic. Of course cancel culture is real. But here's the other part. It happens on the right and the left. Like, I feel like the only time it's brought up is when it's lefties who are doing the canceling. But there are plenty of examples of the opposite. Lil Nas X, when he released the Satan shoe, had Republicans literally calling for him to be canceled. Literally. Deplatformed everything. What was the other thing that we just covered? Why am I blanking on this at the most inopportune moment imaginable? We literally just covered a story of something that, where is it? Oh, the AP, the Emily Wilder of the AP, who she called Ben Shapiro a little turd. She made fun of Sheldon Adelson and called him a mole rat or some shit. And she was part of a Palestinian movement for Palestinian justice in college. And Republicans were calling for her to be fired from the AP, and she was fired from the AP. That's cancel culture. So cancel culture exists on the left and on the right, but it's only ever talked about when it's the left, and everybody pretends like it's only the left that cancels people. That's fundamentally untrue. But again, to get back to the main point here with Seth Rogen, I think he's half right, half wrong. The half right part is, yeah, it's definitely the case that comedians always hide behind, oh, I guess this is cancel culture, why I'm not getting anywhere in my career and I'm terrible at telling jokes. That happens. But then it is also true that it is a real dynamic that you can't, there are certain things that you can't say or do, things that are actually funny, but everybody pretends like it's not funny and says it's not allowed for reason X, Y, or Z. So, my reaction to this is sort of balanced and I can see it from various angles, but my guess is, as most of the dialogue goes on this topic, it'll be people will either love that he said this or they'll fucking hate that he said this. So we'll see what the reaction is.